Hey, welcome back to Pop Culture Graveyard. I am Hollis. This week, July 8th to be exact, marks the 40th anniversary of the release of the Go-Go's stellar debut LP, Beauty and the Beat. So I would like to pay tribute to this amazing album. In general, the Go-Go's are one of the most underrated bands of all time. Years before the Riot Grrrl movement, the Go-Go's were preaching empowerment through example by climbing to the top of the male-dominated rock scene, writing their own songs, singing their own songs, and playing their own instruments. The Go-Go's are being inducted this year, rightfully so, into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I already made my case for the Go-Go's induction, which you can find by clicking up here. So please join me for a deep dive into one of the greatest albums of all time, Beauty and the Beat. Who doesn't like the Go-Go's? Before we begin, I just want to say thank you to all of my patrons. I love you guys. If you're enjoying the content I'm bringing you and you would like to help support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon at patreon.com/popculturegraveyard. Back to the show. On July 8th, 1981, the Go-Go's released Beauty and the Beat. From his work as a songwriter, writing My Boyfriend's Back for the Angels, all the way up through his work with Blondie, Richard Gottehrer knows how to get a great sound out of female-fronted groups. The band who made this album consisted of lead vocalist Belinda Carlisle, who we take for granted today, but who was a revelation vocally when she first arrived on the scene. Charlotte Caffey on lead guitar and keyboards, Jane Wiedlin on guitar and backing vocals, and I sort of see Jane being to the Go-Go's what Sylvain Sylvain was to the New York Dolls. Angelic backing vocals, fantastic rhythm playing, and is sort of the glue holding everything together. Finally, the rock-solid rhythm section of drummer Gina Schock, one of the best drummers the 80s music scene produced, and very underrated and melodic bassist Caffey Valentine. The Go-Go's were blessed with two gifted songwriters in Charlotte Caffey and Jane Wiedlin. That's a luxury most bands don't have, as the two wrote separately and together, and occasionally with other band members. That's one of the main reasons why this is one of the best debut LPs of all time. The first track is Our Lips Are Sealed. That's how you kick off a fucking album. Jane shares credit for this great song with Terry Hall of The Specials. When the Go-Go's toured England with The Specials, Jane began a secret romance with Terry Hall, lead singer of The Specials. Once the tour ended and the two were thousands of miles apart, they began writing letters to each other. Jane pretty much wrote the song herself, but she used lots of lines that Terry put in his letters, so he shares co-writing credit for the song. Incidentally, if you'd like to hear another fantastic version of Our Lips Are Sealed, check out Terry Hall's version with Fun Boy 3. I guess you could call it a cover version, but since Terry is co-writer of the song, it's also kinda not. The song is all about their secret affair and all the things that jealous people around them were saying. The lyrics are fantastic. There's a weapon that we must use in our defense, silence. Come on. Those lyrics show such a deft songwriting touch. My favorite part of the song is when Jane herself takes over on vocals and she sings in her beautiful little voice, "Hush my darling, don't you cry. Guardian angel, forget their lies." Ah. Right here it gets me. Right here. In any case, it's one of the best songs on the album, and one of the best lead-off tracks on any album. The next song is How Much More. It's a very upbeat song, and Gina Schock's drumming on this track? Holy hell. John Bonham-esque? Or should I say more to the point, shocking? She just steals the whole damn song. This track also has some bouncy bass and fairly straight-ahead lyrics dealing with romantic jealousy. It has nice little musical touches too. At one point, the guitar starts playing this jangly riff that reminds me a lot of the Shangri-La's Great Big Kiss. A nice light touch on a hard-driving track. That's the perfect soundtrack for either dancing or fighting. Up next is Tonite, and it's got some of my favorite guitar playing on the album. Jangly yet rhythmic, with an almost paranoid relentlessness to it. Belinda's vocals are outstanding here. As she belts out the lines, our minds set on seeing this night through till day. We rule the streets tonight until the morning light. Isn't that badass? I think the chorus of this song really sums up well how most punk bands who played LA back then felt. Charlotte and Jane share a songwriting credit with Peter Case from the Plimsouls. Peter was Charlotte's live-in boyfriend for about 3 years. Tonite is one of the unsung gems on this LP. Up next is Lust to Love, which chronicles a couple's journey from the purely physical to something much more romantic. This is such a surprisingly sweet song, yet it maintains a sort of simmering frustration as a player winds up falling for her plaything. It sort of flips the typical love song on its head in that regard. And Lust to Love might just have the best backing vocals on this whole LP, which is saying something for this gorgeous album. Up next is the band's ode to Los Angeles, This Town. From the song's opening riff, which I once described as being right out of a spaghetti western, this town really grabs hold of you. The chorus's soaring vocal harmonies and pitch-perfect lyrics make This Town one of the best songs the band would ever record. The song basically lionizes the gritty, dangerous yet sexy nightlife of the early 80s Los Angeles music scene, with lyrics that may have lost its tongue-in-cheek aspect in the translation to today's listener, but still packs a real wallop. Check it out. Change the lines that were said before. We're all dreamers, we're all whores. Discarded stars like worn-out cars litter the streets of this town. Does that capture Los Angeles or what? That's some Raymond Chandler quality shit right there. Side 2 kicks off with one of the band's biggest hits, We Got the Beat. When I hear this song, I think of a few things. The Go-Gos performing on the TV show Solid Gold when I was a kid, with Jane wearing some sort of elfin Santaland outfit. I think of the wonderful montage opening to Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And finally, I think of the super sweaty official video for this song, where the girls are kicking serious ass on stage. Belinda is in some of the skinniest, highest heels I've ever seen, and Jane's wearing about 3 different raccoon tails attached to her headband. Charlotte wrote this song, and it's one of her finest moments. Equal parts Land of a Thousand Dances and Blitzkrieg Bop. This track has both punk scene street cred and crossover appeal. If you don't like We Got the Beat, chances are you just don't like the Go-Gos. Or probably any music. Up next is Fading Fast, another great song by Charlotte. A tad complex, this song sounds like a whole lot of different little songs all in one. Perhaps Belinda's most beautiful vocal performance on the whole LP. Fading Fast also features gorgeous harmonies singing a counter melody. Years before Gautier's Somebody That I Used to Know, the Go-Gos already mined that emotional territory with Fading Fast. You can talk about old times, they don't mean a thing to me. You're fading fast, out of my memory. That's not heartless. He knows what he did. Up next is Automatic, and just when you think you've got the Go-Gos figured out, they hit you with this sleepy little post-punk song. Automatic is a creepy sounding little song, in a good way, that seems to be about sex devoid of all emotion. The pitch-perfect production really elevates this marvelous track even higher, and the lyrics are wonderfully disjointed, and they read on the page like something by Wire or the Minutemen. Up next is You Can't Walk in Your Sleep, If You Can't Sleep, Logical. This is a fun one. The ladies detail the major problem with being a successful touring band, and that of a guy with a music-oriented YouTube channel. Namely, that with so much rock and roll adrenaline coursing through your veins, it can be difficult to get to sleep. Charlotte and Jane wrote this one, and once you see the Go-Gos documentary, it'll be easy to figure out why these ladies weren't sleeping much. Up next is Skidmarks On My Heart. We have reached my pick for the most underrated song on this killer album. It's got all the hallmarks. It features Belinda belting, the backing vocals are on point, Gina Shock tears up her drum kit, and Charlotte brings back that south of the border guitar flavor that she used so well on This Town. This track was written by Belinda and Charlotte and asks the question, what do you do when your man's mistress is an automobile? The lyrics are delicious. I buy you cologne, you want axle grease. You say get a mechanic, I say get a shrink. I need promises, you want motor trend. Our love needs an overhaul. This may be the end. Those lyrics are J.D. Power and Associates approved. The final track on this album is Can't Stop the World. One thing that might surprise you if you re-listen to this album for the first time in a long time, and I hope you do after watching this, is just how strongly the album finishes up. This album doesn't slowly wind down like a lot of other good albums. The Go-Gos really run through the tape. The final song, Can't Stop the World, is one of the most hectic, fun, and raucous tracks on this entire LP. And again, ladies and gentlemen, Gina fucking Shock. Are you kidding me? If I can coin a phrase, she's thunderous precision. I've never heard such a heavy drummer with such a light touch. The lyrics to the song are wonderful, and the Go-Go's even leave us with words to live by. Can't stop the world. Why let it stop you? Fucking A, Go-Go's. One last great song on an all-time classic of an album. That's it for this week on Pop Culture Graveyard. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. And I will see you next week with a lot more cool stuff.